What's going on, everybody? Let's break down the Bryan Baker trade a little bit. Here is a lot of people were a little upset when the trade broke earlier, at least on Twitter and a little bit on Facebook. The trade, in a lot of people's eyes, kind of signaled off that the Orioles were just throwing in the towel in the season. You know, they were about to have a huge fire sale. Why would you go and trade a guy who has 3 years control? You know, a lot of people around here like Bryan Baker, and Bryan Baker had turned himself around. He was starting to warm up to me a little bit. I was never the biggest Bryan Baker fan in the world starting out, but Bryan Baker's he had a really nice season. He had honestly the fourth best changeup in all of baseball this year, which a lot of people did not know. So, what can you do? So when you're looking at it, they're like, oh, here goes Mike, only getting the 37th overall pick out of this. Look, come March and April, I don't think there might have been a fan in Baltimore that even wanted Bryan Baker on the team. So you turn that into a first round pick. Like that's a massive win for the Orioles. A first round pick for Bryan Baker. Now, there's a caveat to this because he did go to the Rays. The Rays seemed to fix everyone on the mound. Not that Bryan Baker was completely broken, but he wasn't really that consistent in Baltimore. I think he's gonna pitch very well in Tampa, especially having years control. You know, he's gonna have some time with their coaches. And in 2-3 weeks, he's going to be rocking and rolling. I mean, they already have, 4 guys in their bullpen with a sub-3 ERA? I think you see Bryan Baker finish the season just like that. Long term, I think this helps the Orioles more obviously than the short term. This trade does not help this year's team, doesn't help next year's team, potentially might not even help 2027's team. Who knows? It all depends on what the Orioles do with it. And they have gotten guys by the names of Gunnar Henderson. You know, he was a 40-something, 42nd, I think, overall pick. Jordan Westberg was after 30. Kyle Stowers. You know, some good names have come from that early second round comp style pick. So it's not the end of the world that you basically flipped Bryan Baker for a first round talent. It's just a matter of what you do with it now. If they go and get another Jordan Westberg, I don't think in 4 years from now, a single one of us will complain. It wouldn't even matter if Bryan Baker has like a sub-2 ERA for 3 years. You know, I don't know. Adit makes a good point here. Do they trade him with an option remaining? I think they do. Mike said it himself today. He wasn't looking to trade Bryan Baker. He wasn't calling around the league to trade Bryan Baker. He was presented with a first-round pick. That's the kind of stuff that's going to take, a pitcher with control who throws high velocity. That's what it's going to take to pry him away. And, I see nothing wrong with it. I mean, Bryan Baker was arguably probably I would say maybe number 2 that I trusted. We'll say a dead heat tie with Dominguez. If Felix Bautista wasn't available, it had to be either Bryan Baker or Dominguez. So to lose a guy like that is tough, especially with kind of how the bullpen's pitched this year and what you need next year. I don't know. Laura makes a good point here. Rays come knocking and made an offer they couldn't refuse. That's what it came down to. I don't think Mike Elias was out here looking to trade Bryan Baker. I mean, it kind of shows you that, it doesn't matter who you are, that you could potentially be available for the right price. But I like the trade overall. I mean, does it help Tampa? Yeah, big time. This year, next year, maybe the year after that. Absolutely big time helps them out in the back end of their bullpen, which is already really strong. But again, if the Orioles flip that kind of player into, another Dylan Beavers or another Jordan Westberg or another Gunnar Henderson, in 4 years from now, the team only gets better. And, I think the O's long term win this trade if they hit on the pick. Obviously, there's a lot of ifs there. If they hit on the pick, they win this trade long term. Tampa obviously wins it short term, but there's a lot that goes to it. If they would have called and just maybe offered, we'll say like their number 10 or number 15 prospect who's, a guy in AA who's like 24 and he's got like a 3.8 ERA. I don't think they make the deal. I really don't. Turning Bryan Baker into a first round talent was honestly a no brainer for Mike Elias. And I know people hate Mike and think that he's going to kind of ruin the draft, the team. I get it. He deserves some of his criticisms, but this one here is pretty good. People were a little upset when they traded Jorge Lopez back in the day. We got some solid years out of Cano. There's still some remains to be seen with Povich, but he's a guy that's giving you innings, for a guy who's on his third or fourth team now since that trade. So like that seemed to pan out. So these things have a way of working themselves out. But hell, for a first round pick, I'm proud of Mike for making that tough decision. I know that wasn't easy. Because Bryan has helped the team this year. Sure, he, in recency bias, did not help the team, but overall this year, Bryan Baker's been pretty good for the Baltimore Orioles. He did have an 8.6 ERA this year in just under 9 innings against the NL. For some reason, the O's just suck against the NL. That's been, since 2023? Like all last year, they just incredible struggles against the NL. So that is kind of whatever. And Sean makes a good point here. Elias hasn't missed inside the top 40. Gunnar was picked at 42. Yeah, I completely agree. And, Beavers was taken there. Norby was taken there. Stowers has been taken, in the second round. He's done well. And my only issue was just not, like, who pitches next year. That's my only issue. Because you have Dominguez is likely leaving. He's going to get a fairly decent contract. Fairly decent. I think they trade Soto. I think Soto's got some value being a high-velocity left-handed pitcher. So plus he's a free agent anyway. So you got those two guys that are likely gone. And then you got Kittredge. I don't know if they pick up Kittredge's option right now. That was a guy that I kind of expected to be what Bryan Baker was this year, that back-end guy that kind of shut the door to get to Felix. Today kind of confused me. Because Kittredge is pretty good. But he started warming up at the 5th inning. Like, was that because you trust him that much to warm him up to get you out of a big jam early in the game? Or was it you don't trust him? Like that, I don't know. That one confused me a little bit. I didn't know how to take that. But like if he's a guy that you're only gonna, pitch in the 5th and 6th inning now, like you're not picking that option up next year. That's a third guy gone. Now you traded Baker. That's a fourth guy. Who's going to pitch in the bullpen next year? That was my initial concern was you got to spend a lot of money this offseason to fill that bullpen. Right now, at the moment of this recording here, July 10th, I don't let Sir Anthony Dominguez walk out the door right now. The way that splitter's starting to play a little bit, some high leverage situations when Felix hasn't been available. He's performed fairly well. And with not having anybody, you got to maybe keep him around. I don't know if he's going to sign for less than 10. It's a remaining to be seen. Splitter's been good this year, and I feel like somebody's going to give him a legit shot. Yankees need bullpen help. The Dodgers need bullpen help. So somebody's going to be paying and potentially even overpaying for a guy like Sir Anthony Dominguez. Do you try to extend him early? I don't know. But that was the biggest question that I had right off the bat from the Baker trade. It was just, where the hell do you go from here? But again, 4 years from now, if you have a Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westburg type player, I don't think you would have a single soul in Baltimore that would ever look back at that trade and be upset, even if Baker flourishes in Tampa. So I think the O's won the trade there. That was one of the better trades that Mike has made in recent years. Very happy with that. I don't know if that second round comp pick would have got this trade done. So I'm very happy that it was definitely the first round comp pick. Maybe a second round comp pick, and then like I talked about, that AA decent pitcher kind of thing. But I think this one overall is just better for the team long term. And hell, I mean, when you really think about it, like, they could draft somebody really good at 37. And I understand that the argument that he doesn't help you right away. But does that guy at 37 get flipped maybe in the offseason for a more quality type arm? Those are the things that we have to kind of think about. Right now, you've got a surplus of outfielders. Fabian, Bavers, Bradfield, Honeycutt, Josenberger, Nate George has been playing well. Like, if you took another outfielder here at 37, one of these polarizing names like Honeycutt was last year, it fell a little bit. Why can't you flip that for a better arm? I understand Honeycutt's struggling right now, but I guarantee you, if you made him available, he would be on the tops of a lot of teams' list to acquire. Because some guys just struggled that first year. It's not that big of a deal. It's what he does next year. Again, if you made them available, who knows? If 37, this pick is a really good player, and you make him available and he helps you land one of these good arms in the offseason, that helps the team in the short term. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. We'll see who they take, how they keep them. The O's could get absolutely lucky, and one of these good arms, like Jacob Mizorowski, what was he, a community college guy, and now he's just blowing people away in the big leagues. Like, one of these guys that just falls to the O's at 37. These kind of things could happen. So it's a wait and see approach. I think what you're going to get out of Bryan Baker. It's going to upset some fans when he does do well in Tampa. People just kind of have to remember that Tampa just does this all the time. They're going to make him pretty good. It's just what they do. Their bread and butter in that organization is pitching. And they've always put out really good arms, and they've fixed a lot of different arms. They're going to get Bryan Baker to perform pretty good. If they don't, chalk that as a giant win to Mike Elias. Put it that way. So Michael asks here, are we sellers? Michael, I think you still got to wait this one out. I think they're going to take the next 21 days and figure this out. And we might not know until Mike's going to field some calls. Don't get me wrong. Mike's going to field some calls, but it's going to come down to what the big league team's doing. I still think he showed it today. He's still going to sell certain guys for the right price, but still try to make this team better if they keep winning. I mean, you're 8 games under 500 now. All of a sudden, you come out of that break, and let's say they go 2-3 here again with the Marlins, and so you finish the homestand at 4-2. 2-3 is going to put you at what? 6 games, 7 games under 500. Likely is going to put you, we'll hope, at 5.5. 5 games, 5.5 out of the wild card. How do you not take a shot? The AL is kind of weak this year. Like, do I expect Cleveland and that abysmal offense to kind of stick around? Not really. Not really. We know who the Angels are. The Angels are going to fall apart. They're really Seattle. Yeah, they got one guy hitting really well. Could they fall apart? They did last year. Who knows? Tampa, I think, is obviously going to be good. Yankees are obviously going to be good. Boston's Boston right now. They play really good sometimes. Other times they don't. Toronto's really hot right now. In years past, Toronto has fallen apart come August and September, so that also remains to be seen. Houston, I think, kind of has locked up. Texas is kind of up and down this year. Like, everybody outside of those top 4 or 5 teams are just up and down, just like the Orioles. Like, the Orioles get hot enough, there's no reason they can't slide into that very last spot. There's none. I think they waited out, Mike. I really do. Now, if they lose a couple games, obviously, yeah, they're going to sell. But if they keep winning, I think they're going to sell and buy at the same time, which they should do anyway. In my opinion, you should do that anyway. Look to, just like they did in 2022, nobody wanted to trade Trey Mancini. Nobody wanted to trade Jorge Lopez. Everyone loved both those guys. Obviously, Trey was loved a lot more. But those kind of trades set the team up for the future. Povich has given you some decent innings. He's still got a lot to learn, but he's given you some good innings. Cano was unstoppable for that little time there in 23 and most of 24. He get himself back. That was, I consider that a win trade. Yes, you got McDermott for Trey. That hasn't panned out yet, and then he left tonight's game with right elbow discomfort. But for the most part, Trey won a World Series, but then he was pretty much out of baseball, right? They just kind of in the minor leagues, kind of floating around a little bit. So I would say they gave themselves a shot there with a minor league arm. But I think now the O's are in a little bit better of a position now, where you don't just take minor league arms and projects. Now I think they can ask for guys that are going to help the team a lot faster. More like Cano, or reverse, try to acquire guys like Jorge Lopez, reversing 2022. I don't know. We'll see. I think they should definitely try to identify people that are going to help, especially at least in 26. Because you think about it, Sagano's a free agent, Morton's a free agent. You got Bradish and Grayson and Wells coming off. And I think Wells goes back to the bullpen. Suarez will be, 37 years old? So you kind of only have Bradish and Grayson and Kramer. And then you got Povich and Brandon Young, upgradable at this point. So you got to fill the roster spots, and might as well go get somebody decent if you can. And I could 100% see that. And Alcantara has been terrible right now. Why not try? If you could swing the right deal, why not try? And I thought about that today. Why wouldn't you maybe try to flip 37 overall and number 69, the two comp picks? Why wouldn't you try to flip that for Alcantara? That's value. Now you don't have to send a Bradfield in that trade. Now you can kind of dial that back to a Tavian Josenberger or something like that. Those picks for somebody at Alcantara provide a lot of value. Now, where I don't think that works out is the Marlins just don't want to pay that slot bonus. That's the problem. They don't want to pay the $2 million. So, but they have the option and the flexibility to flip stuff like that. Pittsburgh wouldn't mind having that 37th pick. I can promise you that. So, just having to move, Bradfield or Honeycutt and Heston and, all these different good players, or even Mayo for Keller. You throw 37 in there, and all of a sudden you don't have to trade Kobe Mayo. You can bump that down to somebody else that's decent, but not great, but decent. Who's the next traded that if I had to guess? Good question. Next traded, I think it's still going to be an arm. I did see earlier that the Yankees are interested in Sagano and Eflin. I think they're going to wait their turns on that one. They're going to kind of wait and see where Eflin is in his rehab. They're going to give Sagano another start. And we still got 3 weeks here, so Sagano could technically get in another, 3 starts probably. So we'll see. Houston wants Mullins real bad. So if Mullins could be the next one to go, if the market heats up pretty fast, somebody's an injury or something in center field, and then teams are like, oh, crap, and then they got to start rebidding against each other real fast. I think O'Hearn, they let that play out. He's been a little scuffling a little bit. He was coming into today was hitting 205 or something lately. They're going to let that one play out a little bit. But I think Mullins might be the one. If it's not Mullins, it's probably Eflin. And if it's not Eflin, I would say maybe Soto. I think they're gonna try and move Soto to somebody because you got a lefty that throws hard. A lot of teams want that. The back end of their bullpen. He's been a little inconsistent in his career, but again, you throw hard and you're left-handed. Somebody's going to give you a shot. So I would say ranking it probably Mullins 1, Soto 2. I'll just stay there for now. Probably Eflin 3 maybe. We'll see. So look, I've said this for a while. The Marlins are not good whatsoever at rehabbing people. Look at Luzardo. Struggled for a while. Goes to Philly, gets himself healthy. Hit a little bit of a blip there, but been overall pretty dominant. Alcantara, I feel like, would be the same way. You get him away from Miami. Miami's got good hitting coaches. Their training staff, Get him away from Miami. You get him in a better system. And look, the Dodgers are thinking the same way. The Yankees are thinking the same way. The Orioles should be thinking the same way. All the good teams are going to say that we realize what the Marlins do with their arms. They're not the greatest at getting these guys back 100% healthy. Let's take a shot. I mean, you saw what Trevor Rogers doing right now. Left Miami, wasn't the healthiest guy in the world. Finally gets, a couple months to rest and is playing pretty good. Pretty good. So, I mean, there's two guys from Miami in the last year have gone elsewhere and finally rested, got healthy, and it performed. So Alcantara, he's still going to be incredibly sought after by everybody, regardless of his 9 ERA in his last 7 starts or whatever crazy it is. Bryan Baker just blew a lead off to a good start. It happens. It happens. Baker's probably tired. What are you doing? Get off. Dog sitting over here chewing on my damn chair. Get out of here. What's wrong with these animals? But, yeah, I mean, look, if Baker wants to keep blowing games every single night, that's just more of a win for the Orioles. I don't think he's going to. I think it's going to give him a little bit of time. You go to a new team. You're very nervous, right? You want to perform. You haven't even probably unpacked your bags yet. It's hard that very first night. It's hard. I don't think I don't even think Tampa cares after tonight. They just need somebody to get a couple outs. If you blow a lead, whatever. But long term, I think Baker is going to be completely fine in Tampa. They're very good at what they do over there. But I'm just hoping that Mike turns this first round pick into something that really helps us long term. I mean, he's done good so far in those comp picks. Beavers, Norby, Westberg. I mean, these are guys that are already helping and or going to help the organization in some way, via a trade, being one of the better players on the team, being the next top prospect to probably come up here shortly. So we'll see. We'll see. Kudos to Mike, for saying yes to that, because that's a tough. Kudos to Tampa for being that aggressive. They saw a guy that they liked with control. I mean, good for them. I hope Mike looks at that and says, maybe I need to be that aggressive too, right? Because that's been the knock on him a little bit. He hasn't been aggressive enough to make the team better. So, and when you're looking at a team like Tampa, who gets knocked on all the time, for not paying people and not doing this, not doing that, but they stay competitive, maybe that should open your eyes just a little bit. Just a little bit, We'll see. We shall see. But what time is it? 9:30? I'm going to hop on off here because I'm tired. But overall, I'll give the trade, I'd say an A for both sides. An A for both sides. Tampa got better in the short term. Hopefully the Orioles get better in the long term, but they at least set themselves up to get better in the long term. Maybe short term too. It all depends on trades. Who knows? But A for both sides. We'll see. But I'm going to hop off. I'll catch you guys later. Appreciate every single one of you stopping in here. Y'all have a good one.